Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gaudavani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarane Trinadapi Sunichena Tarar Eva Sahishnuna Amanina Manadena Kirtaniya Sadahari Hare Nama Hare Nama Hare Nama Kevalam Kalo Nastyeva 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 Gat Anyata Bhangung Lang Hayate Shailang Mukamat Vartayech Truting Yat Kripatamahang Vande Krishna Chaitanya Mishwaram Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Jai Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Haribo Prabhupadas, good to see you. Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Jaya Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Jai Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara should be Asari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Jaya Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Nama Krishna Yadavaya Namaha Gopala Govinda Rama Shri Madhusudana. Hare Nama Krishna Yadavaya Namaha. Gopala Govinda Rama Shri Madhusudana. Govinda Jaya Jaya Gopala Jaya Jaya. Radha Ramana Hari Govinda Jaya Jaya. Radha Ramana Hari Govinda Jaya Jaya. Radha Ramana Hari Govinda Jaya Jaya. Krishna 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 Hey. Krishna 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 Hey. Krishna 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 Rakshama. Krishna 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 Pahima. Rama Raghava Rama Raghava Rama Raghava Rakshama. Krishna Keshava Krishna Keshava Krishna Keshava Pahima. Jaya Radhe Jaya Krishna Jaya Vrindavana. Shri Govinda Gopinatha Madana Mohana. Jaya Radhe Jaya Krishna Jaya Vrindavana. Shri Govinda Gopinatha Madana Mohana. Jaya Radhe Jaya Krishna Jaya Vrindavana. Shri Govinda Gopinath Madana Mohan. Jaya Vishnupad Paramahamsa Baribrajacharya Ashtotter Satta Sri Srimad His Divine Grace Sri Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem se kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sri Vasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Sri Radha Krishna Gop Gopinath Syama Kunda Radha Kundagiri Govardhana Ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Navadvip Dham Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Tulsi Maharani Ki Jai. Yamuna Devi Ki Jai. Ganga Devi Ki Jai. Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Gaur Premanandi. All glories to my Krishna book students. All glories to my Krishna book students. All glories to my Krishna book students. All glories to Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga. Hari Hari Bol. Hari Hari Bol. Hari Hari Bol. Om Namah Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namah Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namah Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namah Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So last week we heard about Rukmini's dilemma. Rukmini was the daughter of King Bhishmaka in the kingdom of Vidarbha. And most everyone in the family, if not everyone, wanted Rukmini to marry Krishna. Rukmini had heard about Krishna from Narada and other great sages when they would visit the kingdom of Vidarbha. And just upon hearing the wonderful qualities and exploits of Krishna, Rukmini decided, there is nobody else I want to be married to, only Krishna. So practically everyone in the family also wanted Rukmini to marry Krishna. But Rukmini's eldest brother, Rukmi, he was opposed. And he arranged that Rukmini would be married to his friend Shishupal. And Shishupal was also part of the alliance, the United Nations of Demons that had been set up by Kamsa. So, Shishupal had other friends such as Jarasandha, who we have heard about in the last couple of episodes, and also Shalva, another demon who we will hear about towards the end of the Dwaraka pastimes. So the marriage was settled, and King Bhishmaka, Rukmini's father, even though he personally wanted Rukmini to be married to Krishna, because his eldest son arranged it, he went along. And actually, all the inhabitants of Vidarbha were very upset. And they would pray regularly, "Oh, please, somehow or other, let Rukmini be married to Krishna, not that nasty Shishupal." So Rukmini had this dilemma. How was she going to resolve it? So today's episode is called Rukmini's Message to Krishna. Please hear with rapt attention. Thus, being very much satisfied by these transcendental pastimes of the Lord, the Brahmana narrated the whole story of his mission in coming to see Krishna. He got out the letter Rukmini had written to Krishna. So, we also heard in the last episode that Rukmini did not unnecessarily lament. Even though her marriage to Shishupal was going to happen within 1 or 2 days, she did not let her disappointment or lamentation overcome her. She used her intelligence. So I point out always in this connection that being a devotee of Krishna, yes, we depend on Krishna. We know that Krishna is the ultimate sanctioner or permitter. But that doesn't mean that we become lazy or hopeless. No, we have to do our part. We have to do everything in our own power to get the service that we want to do accomplished. Just like my good friend likes to do the Rath Yatra, Srilesh, and also G2 and others, the junta. You have to do much planning and much hard work to do Rath Yatra. Am I right? You just don't sit back and say, "Oh, Jagannath will do everything." No, it doesn't work that way. We have to do our part. We have to do our seva. That is how we demonstrate our love for Krishna. Not that, like Prabhupada says all the time, it's not that Krishna told Arjuna on the chariot, "Oh, Arjuna, you sit down and smoke ganja. I will do everything." No. Arjuna had to do the fight. So in the same way, we have to do our fight. This is also mentioned in the 8th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, that we have to do 2 things. What are those 2 things? Remember Krishna and execute our prescribed duty. Just like Arjuna had to fight the battle of Kurukshetra and at the same time think of Krishna. Both, so that's our duty. Do all of our activities, whether it be our work, whether it be our school work, or whether it be Rath Yatra or food for life, we have to do everything on our end and at the same time depend and remember Krishna. And Rukmini is the same way. She just didn't sit back. So she wrote a letter. So now this Brahmana, deputed by Rukmini, says, to Krishna. These are the words of Princess Rukmini. My dear Krishna, O infallible, Achyuta, O most beautiful one, any human being who happens to hear about your transcendental form and pastimes immediately absorbs through one's ears your name, fame, and qualities, and thus all of one's material pangs subside, and one fixes your form within one's heart. So, this is how we do meditation. Yes. Sometimes people ask us, do you do meditation? And the answer is yes, but not the kind of meditation that the yogis or modern day people do, sitting down and meditating. No, that is not the kind of meditation we do. Our meditation is an active meditation. Just like we heard already in the pastimes of the gopis. The gopis were doing all of their household work, taking care of the children, taking care of the husbands, doing all the chores, milking the cows, making the butter, making the yogurt, cooking, washing. The gopis were doing so many activities, but at the same time, they were constantly absorbed in Krishna's name, fame, form, pastimes, entourage, qualities. So in that way, we also can become the greatest yogis, as Krishna says at the end of the 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, that one who always thinks of him in real deep attachment and love, that is the greatest of yogi. And we already heard Prabhupada quote Lord Chaitanya that there are no better yogis than the gopis. They don't sit down and do Om meditation. No, they're working hard all day. But at the same time, they're thinking and remembering of Krishna. So, Rukmini's letter continues. Through such transcendental love for you, O Lord, one always sees you within oneself, and by this process, all of one's desires are fulfilled. Similarly, I have heard your transcendental qualities. I may be shameless in expressing myself directly, but you have captivated me and taken my heart. Now you may doubt my steadiness of character, since how could an unmarried young girl like me approach you without any shame? But, my dear Mukunda, you are the supreme lion among human beings. You are the supreme person among human beings. Therefore, you are called Purusha Uttama or Purusha Uttama. Any girl, though not yet having left home, or even any woman of the highest chastity, would also desire to marry you, being captivated by your unprecedented character, knowledge, opulence, and position. So we also heard this previously when we studied the chapters where Radharani was in mad ecstasy when Uddhava came with Krishna's message. And you may recall that Radharani was talking to a bumblebee, accepting that bumblebee to be like Uddhava, a messenger from Krishna. And first, Radharani was saying many bad things about Krishna, but then later Rukmini retracted everything and spoke all favorably about Krishna. So it was also mentioned at that time that there is no woman in the three worlds who would not be attracted by seeing the beautiful form of Krishna. After all, Lord Chaitanya points out that there are 4 special characteristics that Krishna has, that even Narayan does not have. 4 special characteristics. Krishna has, according to Lord Chaitanya, Krishna has 64 transcendental qualities. 60 of those are also possessed by Lord Narayan. But Krishna has 4 other special ones, namely extraordinary beauty, meaning Krishna's beauty is more beautiful than that of Narayan. Krishna is surrounded by loving devotees who have spontaneous attraction for him. Krishna has unique, wonderful pastimes, very special pastimes. And the last one, Krishna, simply by blowing on his flute, can attract anyone in the 3 worlds. Let us continue with Rukmini's letter. My Lord, I know that you are the husband of the goddess of fortune. Therefore, one of your names is Madhava. And I also know that you are very kind towards your devotees. Therefore, I have decided to become your eternal maidservant. Now this is significant. This shows several things about Rukmini's consciousness. Number 1, it shows that Rukmini is very intelligent. And number 2, it shows that Rukmini is utterly humble. Notice, she is not saying, I want to be your wife. She says, I have decided to become your eternal maidservant. That is significant. Later, when we arrive at Kurukshetra, and the residents of Vrindavan and the residents of Dwaraka meet, and everyone is there at Kurukshetra, and the gopis meet Krishna in a solitary place. At one point, during that observance of the solar eclipse, there is a conversation between Draupadi and the queens of Krishna. All 16,108 queens accompanied Krishna from Dwaraka and were there at Kurukshetra to observe religious practices at Kurukshetra during the solar eclipse. So at some point, because they were there for some days, Draupadi inquired from all the queens, how was it that you got Krishna as your husband? How was that? Because Draupadi herself was a great devotee of Krishna. Therefore, one of her names is Krishna. Yes, she was a great devotee of Krishna. So each and every queen, first the 8 principal queens spoke, headed by Rukmini. And in each and every case, each queen said, yes, although I am married to Krishna and I am his wife, I see myself as Krishna's maidservant. And also, Rohini, the representative of the 16,100 princesses that Krishna married, we heard about that. 16,100 princesses were kept captive by Baumasura. And then Krishna rescued them. And when Krishna rescued them, the queens practically said that nobody is going to marry us. So Krishna said, so what do you want? And so the queen said, we want you to marry us. So Krishna accepted all those 16,100 princesses because according to Vedic culture, they would never have gotten married because they were kidnapped by Jarasandha. But Krishna agreed to marry them. So even Rohini, the representative of the 16,100 princesses, also said the same thing, that we may be one of Krishna's wives, but we consider ourselves Krishna's eternal maidservant. So now Rukmini says, my dear Lord, I dedicate my life and soul unto your lotus feet. So for the devotee also says that, but the devotee says that at the time of initiation, and he says that to the spiritual master. Therefore, you should not accept the spiritual master unless you are prepared to say what Rukmini says here. I dedicate my life and soul unto your lotus feet. Until you find somebody that you can actually say that to, then do not accept a guru. This is what you have to be ready to say. I dedicate my life and soul unto your lotus feet. Rukmini continues, I have selected your lordship as my husband, and I therefore request you to accept me as your wife. So now, after first saying that she wants to be his maidservant, now she's asking, I request you to accept me as your wife. You are the supreme powerful, O lotus-eyed one. Now I belong to you. For you see, if that which is enjoyable for the lion to eat is taken away by the jackal, then it will be a ludicrous affair. Therefore, I request you to immediately take care of me before I am taken away by Shishupal or other princes like him. My dear Lord, in my previous life, I may have done public welfare work like digging wells and planting trees, or pious activities such as performing ritualistic ceremonies and sacrifices, and serving superiors like the spiritual master, Brahmanas and Vaishnavas. By these activities, perhaps I have pleased the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Narayana. If this be so, then I wish that you, Lord Krishna, the brother of Lord Balaram, please come here and catch hold of my hand so that I will not be touched by Shishupal and his company. So we can see from Rukmini's letter how intelligent she is. It is said that when offering prayers, there is a system. So the first part of offering a prayer is you glorify the worshipful Lord. First you glorify and praise the worshipable person, whether it be the spiritual master or in this case Krishna. And then after praising the spiritual master, in humility you make your request, because basically any prayer is more or less a request of some favor or benediction or blessing. So Rukmini here is teaching us how to pray. First you glorify, and then you make your humble request. The devotee cannot demand. No, that is not a devotee. Devotee cannot demand. A devotee may beg. A devotee may pray. A devotee may aspire, but the devotee cannot demand. No. The devotee always does everything in humility. Trinadapi sunichena, tarad iba sahishnuna, amani na manadena, kirtaniya sada hari. Lord Chaitanya teaches us always, 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 constantly, all throughout the day. Think of yourself meek and humble. Try to be tolerant. Offer all respects to others. And don't expect anything in return. Let us continue. Prabhupada now comments after hearing this letter from Rukmini. Rukmini's marriage with Shishupal was already settled. Therefore, Rukmini suggested that Krishna kidnap her so that this might be changed. This sort of marriage, in which the girl is kidnapped by force, is known as Rakshasa and is practiced among Kshatriyas or men with an administrative, martial spirit. Because Rukmini's marriage was already arranged to take place the next day, Rukmini suggested that Krishna come there incognito to kidnap her and then fight with Shishupal and his allies like the king of Magadha, Jarasandha. Here's Jarasandha again. We're not finished with Jarasandha. Knowing that no one could conquer Krishna because one of Krishna's names is Ajita, who would certainly emerge victorious, Rukmini addressed Krishna by that name Ajita, the unconquerable Lord. Rukmini told Krishna not to be concerned that the fighting would take place within the palace and that many of her family members, including other women, might thus be wounded or even killed. Just as the king of a country thinks of diplomatic ways to achieve his objective, Rukmini, being the daughter of a king, was diplomatic in suggesting how this unnecessary and undesirable killing could be avoided. Rukmini explained that it was the custom of her family to visit the temple of goddess Durga, their family deity, before the marriage. Prabhupada comments, Kshatriya kings were mostly staunch Vaishnavas, worshipping the form of Lord Vishnu or Lakshmi Narayan. But still, for their material welfare, they used to worship goddess Durga. But they never made the mistake, however, of accepting any demigod to be on the same level as the Supreme Lord, to be equal to the Vishnu Tattva, as do some less intelligent men nowadays do. In order to avoid the unnecessary killing of her relatives, Rukmini suggested that it would be easiest for Krishna to kidnap her while she was either going from the palace to the temple or else returning home from the temple. Rukmini also explained to Krishna why she was so anxious to marry him, even though her marriage was to take place with Shishupal, who was also qualified, being the son of a great king. Rukmini said that she did not think anyone was greater than Krishna, not even Lord Shiva, who was known as Mahadeva, the greatest of all demigods. Lord Shiva also seeks the pleasure of Lord Krishna in order to be delivered from his entanglement with the quality of ignorance within the material world. Although Lord Shiva is the greatest of all great souls, or Mahatmas, Lord Shiva keeps on his head the purifying water of the Ganges, which emanates from a hole in this material world made by the toe of Lord Vishnu in his form as Vamanadev. So last year, I did a whole class around the time of Vamana Dwadasi, and we heard the pastime of this Vamana avatar. It's one of my favorite narrations in the Bhagavatam, the story of Vamana and Bali Maharaj. Prabhupada continues, Lord Shiva is in charge of the material quality of ignorance, and in order to keep himself in a transcendental position, Lord Shiva always meditates on Lord Vishnu or Krishna, and always tries to purify himself with the water of the Ganges, because this Ganges water, we read in the Bhagavatam, this Ganges water is actually 3 rivers. So one source of the Ganges was mentioned here when Lord Vamana kicked a hole in the universe and the water of the causal ocean bathed Lord Vamana's feet. And because it bathed Lord Vamana's feet, the bottom of Vamana or Vishnu's feet is reddish because the Lord's feet is compared to a lotus. So therefore, since the water of the causal ocean bathed Lord Vamanadev's lotus feet, the Ganges is said, according to the Bhagavatam, to have a pinkish color. Another source of the Ganges is said to be that Lord Narayan directly expands himself or incarnates as the Ganges River. And a third source of the Ganges is when Lord Brahma, the creator, bathed Krishna's lotus feet. So in the Bhagavatam, we find that there are 3 sources of this Ganges. Therefore, Rukmini knew very well that obtaining the favor of Krishna was not so easy, since even Lord Shiva must purify himself for this purpose. Surely it would be difficult for Rukmini, who is only the daughter of a Kshatriya king. Rukmini thus desired to dedicate her life to observing severe austerities and penances, such as fasting and going on without bodily comforts. So as Vaishnavas or devotees, we also get to follow in Rukmini's footsteps when we observe Ekadashi. Ekadashi is one of the greatest penances and austerities. There are different levels of Ekadashi, but the simplest basic method that Prabhupada taught us, simply by fasting from grains and beans and legumes. So that austerity performed by the devotee is considered very, very powerful. And we do that twice a month. And even Lord Chaitanya, as a young child, chastised his mother when he found out that she was not strictly following Ekadashi. So there's one incident in the Chaitanya Leela where Lord Chaitanya teaches his mother, yes, you must strictly follow this Ekadashi. So because of that, in the Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya, which ISKCON is, Ekadashi is very, very important. Prabhupada continues, if it were not possible in this lifetime to gain Krishna's favor by these activities, Rukmini was prepared to die from such austerities and undergo similar difficulties lifetime after lifetime. So that is what we call determination. And that is a very, very important item if one is actually serious about going back home, back to Godhead. One has to be in that state of mind that I am prepared to do whatever it is, and even if I am not successful in this life, I will continue lifetime after lifetime in trying to perfect my consciousness so that one day I will be qualified to enter the spiritual world and join Krishna. That is called determination. Prabhupada now writes, in the Bhagavad Gita it is said, Satatang kirtayanto mang yatantascha dridha vrataha namasyantascha mang bhaktya nitya yukta upasate. Pure devotees of the Lord execute devotional service with great determination. Now let's look at this verse before we continue. let's look at this verse. The first line is very similar to Lord Chaitanya's teachings in Shikshastakam. The first line says, Satatang Kirtayanto Mam. So the devotees, the great devotees, or as it was said here, the pure devotees, Satatang Kirtayanto, they are always doing kirtan. So kirtan means singing or speaking about Krishna, just like I am doing this Krishna book class. This is considered kirtan. Similarly, when Shukadeva Goswami was reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, that was considered kirtan. When we go out on the street to do Sankirtan, chanting the Hare Krishna mantra in public, that is called kirtan. When we sing in the temple for the artis, or we do bhajans, that is kirtan. And so the mark of a devotee, satatang, they're always doing kirtan. Lord Chaitanya, his line is, Kirtaniya sada hari. Always, Kirtaniya, always be chanting, sada, always, hari, the name of God. And then yatantascha dridda vrataha. So dridda vrataha means very firm faith. In Hinduism, ladies know there are so many vratas. So we also do vratas in Krishna consciousness. Our vrata is to do all the different items of devotional service. But dridda vrata means very, very intensely, very determinedly. Okay, let's continue. Prabhupada is commenting, pure devotees of the Lord execute devotional service with great determination, dridda vrata. Such determination, as exhibited by Rukmini Devi, is the only price for purchasing Krishna's favor. So this is also mentioned in the Chaitanya Charitamrita and is also picked up by Rupa Goswami in his Upadeshamrita. That one may ask, what is the price of the ticket to go back to Godhead? Like if you want to go to India, you want to go to America, there's a price ticket. First class is one price, economy is one price. But to go on an airplane, you have to pay. So what is the price of the ticket for going back to Godhead? So Rupa Goswami, what he learned from Lord Chaitanya, the price of that ticket is intense desire to achieve it. The technical word is laulyam. Laulyam. Meaning that the devotee is prepared to do anything to achieve Krishna's blessing. I learned this back in 1973-74 because one time I was out doing book distribution. So during the time when we would have lunch, during lunch we would play a Prabhupada cassette of one of his lectures. So this particular summer day, the person in charge of our party in the band, he played this tape of Prabhupada lecturing. And I still remember, because when I heard it, it had a big impression on me. Prabhupada was pounding on the desk or the lectern. And Prabhupada was saying, the devotee's attitude, I will do anything to achieve the favor of Krishna. And you could hear Prabhupada pounding. So that is the price, laulyam, intense greed. When somebody is greedy for money or any material position, they'll do anything. Demons. What do demons do? We saw in the case of Kamsa, and we saw in modern history, demons like Hitler and Stalin. They were prepared to do anything to achieve their goal, even if it meant killing their own family member. Yes, they'll do anything to achieve their goal. So the devotee must have that same mentality. I'll do anything to achieve Krishna's favor. Laulyam. Prabhupada continues, one should be strongly determined in Krishna consciousness, and that is the way to ultimate success. After relaying Rukmini Devi's statement to Krishna, the Brahmana said, my dear Krishna, chief of the Yadu dynasty, I have brought this confidential message for you from Rukmini. Now it is placed before you for your consideration, and after due deliberation, you may act as you please. But if you want to do something, you must do it immediately, for there is not much time left for action. Namaste Narasimhaya. Namaste Narasimhaya. Praklada Klada Dayane. Hiranya Kashipura Vakshaha. Shilatangana Kalaye. Ito Narsingha Parato Narsingho. Yato Yato Yamitato Narsingha. Bahir Narsingho Hridaye Narsingho. Narsingham Adin Sharanang Prapadye. Narsingham Adin Sharanang Prapadye. Narsingham Adin Sharanang Prapadye. Namaste Narasimhaya. Namaste Narasimhaya. Namaste Narasimhaya. Tavakara Kamalavare Nakam Adbhuta Sringam. Dalita Hiranya Kashipu Tanubringam. Keshavadrita Narahadi Rupa. Jai Jagadisha Hare. Jai Jagadisha Hare. Jai Jagadisha Hare. Keshavadrita Narsingha Rupa. Jai Jagadisha Hare. Jai Jagadisha Hare. Jai Jagadisha Hare. Jai Jagadish. Jai Jagadish. Jai Jagadisha Hare. Hare. Jai Jagadisha Hare. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Krishna Krishna. Hare Hare. Hare Rama. Hare Rama. Rama Rama. Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Krishna Krishna. Hare Hare. Hare Rama. Hare Rama. Rama Rama. Hare Hare. Om Tat Sat.